Hello everyone. This is the 24th part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 116. The hawk I had sent to retrieve a rat came back empty-handed, and I suppose it's not entirely his fault. I was usually the one that used to engage with the animals first, but it didn't matter. I still had some choices left to take care of the wildfire. The Tyrells were my plan B. If they wanted to prove their loyalty and keep their house, they would have to help me from within. I had sent them with that idea another letter explaining in detail what I wanted them to do, attacking King's Landing from the inside out, destroying their only weapon against me, as I took control of it. All the Tyrells had to do was to stop the Lannister from blowing the city. As for Tywin and his weapons, I would deal with that old cat myself. After all, he has yet to see I am fireproof. We are ready, Jon informed me. Very well, for now, we have to wait and see if the flowers are really in our side, or if we have to cut them from our garden. This was the test that would mark if the Tyrell survived or not, and I was curious to see if they would really go through with it. Garden, flowers, you sure love making puns, Oberyn chuckled. I suppose, I shrugged. Do we have another plan, if the Tyrells betray us? Ned Stark asked. That is a very, very good question, Oberyn said looking at me. Well, if the flowers betray us, or fail. I'm sad to say. King's Landing will cease to exist, I sighed. I really had nothing to fight for in that city. I already had control over the 80% of Westeros. Getting King's Landing was more of an achievement than anything else. I would actually gain nothing from it, besides some momentary glory. The people, we can't abandon them, Ned Stark said, and I could see on his eyes he was shocked by my answer. I would prefer not to, but the Lannister played their hand, forcing me into a defensive position. I sighed. You can't save everyone. That statement is especially true in times of war, Oberyn said with an emotionless tone, agreeing with me. You and I should know that more than anyone else, Lord Stark. We both lost a sister during the last war. Oberyn finished looking directly at Lord Stark. I know. But we must keep trying. Ned Stark said, showing that like always his honorable side was both his greatest strength and weakness. I'll be honest with you, Lord Stark. If I didn't have to fight a bunch of undead creatures that share a singular purpose, that is to end life as we know it, I would try, but I don't have the luxury of playing the long game with the others coming. In other circumstances, I would just let them die out. Food would eventually run out, and one by one they would die, but unfortunately for me and the people inside the city, I had the entire Walking Dead cast waiting for me. Humanity. At a whole, it's more important than a city. Jon agreed to both my and Ned's surprise, but that doesn't mean we won't try to save the city, right? Yes. I mean, I will certainly try, but if I have to pick, I will let the city burn, while I fight Umbrella. I sighed. Umbrella? Oberyn inquired. It's an inside joke, I chuckled. The pain of a few, for the safety of the many. Ned Stark sighed, knowing very well I was right. I know it's for the best, but I just can't like the idea. That's why I'm the king. I smiled. I make the hard choices for all of you, and many will hate me for it, but it's my job. Ned Stark nodded, with a faint smile perking on his face, a position I don't envy. Part of the job, I chuckled. Olenna Tyrell point of view. Ronard had offered us a deal, one that had many risks, but if we played our cards right would save our house, and all we had to do was finding and neutralizing the wildfire within King's Landing, a task that even without us allying with Ronard, helped us. Because, I was pretty sure, the Lannisters never mentioned they wanted to explode the city. I certainly didn't want to explode, so even without Ronard, it was pretty important for House Tyrell to stop that from ever happening. I gave Father his drugged tea, Marjorie said as she entered the room. Good. I nodded. Any idea where to look for the wildfire? Marjorie inquired as she took a seat across me. Some. I nodded. I'm pretty sure the wildfire is under the city. If I remember correctly, the city had or still has some tunnels that the Targaryens used to use, and if I had to take a guess, the wildfire was there. A very clever spot for it. Marjorie sighed. With so many tunnels we will have a hard time finding it all. Yes, but unless we want to burn alongside this wretched city, we must find it, and buy the young bear as much time as possible, I sighed. things were surely not going like I originally wanted them to go. That we must, Marjorie nodded. And it wasn't like we had any other option. If we tried to escape the city, Ronard would crush us. If we stayed with the Lannisters, Ronard would also crush us. And if we didn't find the wildfire on time, well, we would be crushed, but not by Ronard, but by the Lannisters' ego. Ronard Mormont point of view. Today was as they say, the calm before the storm, the peace before the war. Soon I was going to strike the Lannisters with all my might, either taking the city, or setting it on fire. But today, it was time to relax, and maybe try to understand how my fire works, and the beast teacher available right now was my son. Neltharion, who I was going to see right now. Hey Nelt, what are you doing? I stopped mid-sentence, because for some reason Neltharion was trying out jewelry. Oh hey Dad. I'm trying to find something new to add to my hoard, Neltharion hissed proudly. Your hoard? I had to be honest. I didn't, not in a million years, expect this, though in retrospective it was pretty obvious. Yes. So far I have. The first armor you threw away, the scarf you gave me a few months back, one of Mom's gold collars and some corn, but that one usually goes bad, still trying to figure out how to avoid that. Neltharion said, showing me every single item. Wow, that armor sure is old, I chuckled. And now it's mine, Neltharion said excited. Anyway, what can I do for you? Fire breathing classes, I smirked. Yes. I mean, sure, Neltharion was apparently overly excited to teach me. Awesome, I chuckled. Chapter 117. Fire was a tool of destruction and life. It was a double-edged sword, one that I had to learn to control if I wanted to win the real war, and the key to do so was to control my emotions perfectly, at least on a human point of view. Anger was the original fuel I had used to lit my fire for the first time, but anger was unreliable. I needed to find another focus, one as strong but more malleable, something that didn't blind me. And my son, Neltharion, had helped me to find that. The one thing was triumph above everything, my overwhelming need to protect my children, something almost every parent has. Focus on that thought, feel it burning inside of you, let that burning sensation spread over your body, your lungs, and then, breath, Neltharion instructed. Warmth spread through my body. I had faith not in the asshole that had decided to throw me into his godly chess game, but in my son and his teachings. I had faith that I would succeed, and with that in mind, with that sole thought in mind alongside my burning desire to protect it, I breathed out, and a spark of flames big enough to light a cigarette came. Well, that's a beginning, Neltharion tilted his head. He was probably expecting more than a human-sized cigarette lighter. But I couldn't care less. I had actually breathed fire. Could the same process work with other parts of my body? Ha! I threw a punch to the air repeating what Neltharion had instructed me, and once again a tiny fire erupted from my fist. Ha! Using your claws, well that's new. I suppose even I can learn about fire, Neltharion said, somewhat impressed. I totally thought it would take more than one class, I smiled. I was happy with my progress, but even though I had actually managed to create fire, I was far from being deadly. Unless my enemies were mosquitoes, my fire powers were useless. Well, the first fire at easy, Neltharion nodded. Increasing your fire power, that's the hard part. Fair enough, nothing was ever entirely free, and I wasn't against training a bit. You also need to learn to summon your fire without so much focus, otherwise it's pretty useless. I mean, it took you 55 minutes to focus. Once you are out of that focus, you won't be able to summon the fire within at all, Neltharion added. Once again, he was right. A weapon that needs 2 hours of preparation before battle just to burn someone's eyebrows off was useless. Focus, firepower, and technique. I have a lot of homework cut out for me. Don't worry, Dad. I heard you learned how to use every weapon with ease. I'm sure this will be the same, Neltharion said with clear pride, on the fact that I had mastered every weapon in the known world. An accomplishment that was linked to the fact I had the left hand of God, but fire wasn't considered a weapon, which meant I had for the first time in ages the need to learn from scratch, but I wasn't worried. I had a good start and a good teacher, expectations I plan to surpass. I know you will. We are awesome, our family is awesome. Neltharion hissed happily. Caw. We Ravens are also awesome, totally unrelated to this, but caw. A random raven added. Of course, the Raven clan is definitely among the best. I chuckled. Caw. If I wasn't all black I would be blushing caw. The raven replied, making me laugh even harder. Daenerys' point of view. Peace can be a type of torture when you don't know what your other half is doing. Was Ronard okay? Did he miss me? So many things were running through my mind, so many thoughts, but in the end they all came to the same conclusion. I missed my husband a lot. We should be there with him, fighting, Lyanna muttered close to Daisy. You know him, even if we were there he would put us on the safest battalion, or force us to stay on Bear Island. Daisy chuckled, at least here we defend his family, our family. I suppose, Lyanna nodded. Ronard is like that, always putting himself on the line. It's both annoying and vexing, I smiled, announcing my presence to both of them. My queen, the both said in one voice. For now, let's forget all the formalities. I smiled at them. I want to know more about Ronard. How is he as a baby, as a kid? I want to know everything I can. Well, he was always a little bit off, Daisy said with a thoughtful expression. How so? I inquired. Well, he never behaved like a baby, he was beyond his age, Daisy answered. I suppose that's where my little princess gets her brains, I chuckled. And how he fights, it's unreal, I have never seen him losing. It's like the moment he took the sword itself became a part of him, Daisy added. My mother used to say he was the best our generation had to offer, smart, strong and noble. Now she thinks he's an idiot, but that's mostly because he went to war without even telling her. I can see why she feels like that, I laughed. Ronard was an expert at giving stress to those who loved him. He's what I aim to be, Lyanna smiled. I know deep down I won't ever fight like him, but we are family. Some of his greatness has to be in my veins. He would always say, Lyanna, you can do anything. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, unless it's me. I'll probably have a good reason if I say no, dash. That does sound like him, I smiled. Do you remember how uncomfortable he was flirting with Sansa? Lyanna chuckled, looking at her sister. Oh yeah, Daisy laughed. He tried so hard to fall for her, dates, kisses and everything, but in the end it was as clear as the day he liked her as a sister or a cousin. As a sister or a cousin, that was a red flag on my family. Not anymore. Did she love him? I inquired. I don't think so. Daisy shook her head. She was happy with his efforts and stuff. I mean, it's hard not to like Ronard if you are on his good side, but I don't think she loved him. Maybe she did, but I can't say for sure. I never liked her, Lyanna muttered. Why? I asked. I don't know. I guess it is because she was afraid to think for herself like the majority of the time. It was annoying, Lyanna sighed. Well, Lady Stark is said to be very strict, Daisy commented. Lady Stark? Ronard talked about her a few times, I sighed, remembering how he would describe her as crazy and unstable like her sister. Maybe it runs in the family, which brings a concern to me. Was the madness of my dad running in my veins? Nothing pleasant, I'm sure, Daisy scoffed. No, not all, I chuckled. Well, she better behaves. Ronard is royalty now, she can't do anything to him anymore, Lyanna stated, with a hint of concern flashing through her eyes. She can't do anything to us, right? If she tries, the fire will welcome her, just like it did with Viserys, I said with a dark grim tone. I doubt she's that crazy though, Daisy commented. And for the sake of House Stark, I hope she was right, for if anyone threatened my family, they would feel my wrath and die 1,000 times on the flames. Chapter 118. I gave the Tyrells a few days to locate all the wildfire under the city, while I trained with Neltharion, little by little increasing my fire power, quite literally. I still was a long way from being useful in battle, but I was getting there. I didn't have to meditate like I did before, meaning I could summon fire whenever I wanted, which was an amazing improvement, meaning all I had to do now was focusing on increasing the amount of fire I was able to summon and expel. But regardless of that, I was happy with the development. It was a very enjoyable activity with Neltharion to do, who also enjoyed teaching me. Though learning how to control my fire-bending powers had its downs, for one, every raven was eagerly waiting for me to control them, for they wanted me to make them the delicious plate of food I talked about before, popcorn. My caw! Liege! A raven flew into my shoulder. The Tyrells seemed to have located all the wildfire within the city. They sent a letter stating they are waiting for your command. Well, that was fast. Without my help I expected them to take more time. Very well, I had now to send a letter with very detailed steps of what I wanted. If everything played out right, I would end this war with the lowest amount of casualties possible. With the scroll the Tyrells had sent in hands, I gathered my war council to discuss how we would approach the situation. I say we use Jaime as a diversion. His dear old dad won't resist, Oberyn offered. A good idea, but not really efficient, I sighed. Using Jaime as a pawn would indeed give me results, but those results would at much be minimal. Then again, I could make a show out of his dead, for all the Lannister men to see, but while effective that idea had a problem. It would by honor standards dishonor me. We could execute him before battle, sending his head to King's Landing. That should be enough to destabilize their game, making them suffer for a bit, at least buying us enough time to enact our plan, Jon commented, leaving everyone in the room, shocked. I mean, if you want your grace. Holy crap. Jon, that was dark, and I love it. I had to admit, his idea was very efficient, and would send a message, that while untrue would shake the queen, Jaime's head would make her believe I also killed her kids. That has to be the dragon in you. There is no way a wolf can come up with that, Oberyn chuckled. What do you mean? Ned Stark asked in a dangerously low tone. No offense, but you would probably kill him, bury him. Without never exploiting his usefulness, Oberyn shrugged. We don't like these mind games in the north, nor we need them, Ned Stark stated. Well, our king is a northerner and yet he plays the game like a master, Oberyn chuckled. Ned Stark smirked at Oberyn, which was a disturbing sight to behold, considering the man showed almost as much emotion as Vin Diesel, and he hates the game. He learned how to play it so that he could destroy it, isn't that right, my king? Yes, I nodded. Anyway, now that we have our plan, the next part is simple. We focus on abusing our range, while I deal with the catapults with Neltharion. You are going to mount him? Jon inquired with a hint of excitement on his normally serious voice. Yes, he is big enough for it, and I need to guide him. I nodded as I continued to explain them with detail how my three-part would work. First I would deal with the traps and anchors. Second, my own archers would make death rain on the Lannisters, followed by stage 3, the most important stage, because it needed the Tyrells' cooperation, because by that point, Cersei would start her plan, which we had to stop. If everything played according to the plan, I would have my wife sitting on the throne my next month. This was my last fight within the 7 kingdoms, for my next battle was against the others. Tormund Giantsbane point of view. I fucking hated scouting missions. It was like tempting death to come and fuck you, especially since that undead monstrosity had taken over the real north. His eyes were everywhere. Do not fear, he can't feel us. The weird-looking child said, holding my hand tight. I can keep this magic shield for a while. He won't see us, that is unless we make a sound. So how do we kill that monster? I asked, thinking of the Night King. For what I knew, the king of the undead was special, and that probably made his weakness special and unique. Valyrian steel, on his heart, the child answered. So only the heart? I inquired. Yes, to kill him, yes. Cuts in other areas will only slow him, the tree-looking child nodded. So why are scouting? As I was about to ask more about why we were here, Destiny decided to show me firsthand why we were here. From afar I could see something under a massive iceberg. Is that a dragon? A dead one, the children muttered. We have to warn the others. If he keeps breaking the ice at this speed, it will take him a few months before he has that creature under his command. Undeads, dragons. I can't believe what I'm saying, but I will take a vacation if I survive this. I seriously need it. I sighed as I followed the children back to camp. Night King point of view. Feeble little things, they thought I hadn't seen them, utterly pathetic, but for now, they would live. Their lives were inconsequential on the great scheme of things. They would soon die anyways. For now I had to focus on digging this undead puppet. Soon I would have the power I needed to break this wall. Soon all life would cease to exist. I will consume everything this world has to offer. Soon all life will be done. An era of darkness awaits, and I'm the one bringing it. Nick Fury Ravenicus point of view. With the motherfucker I had been assigned to death, I had changed my sights to beyond the wall, a place full of secrets that could harm my master, and I wasn't going to allow that shit. Undead or not, that monster would not come without us giving Ronard detailed information about his enemies. Flight high, boys and girls. We will be arriving north soon. Caw! I commanded with a very deep caw. Yes. My team answered in a single caw. Good. I cawed back. Varys' point of view. I had overplayed my hand. The current queen wanted to blow up the realm, and I had yet to talk with Jon. He needed to know he had a better claim than Ronard and Daenerys. Jon Targaryen was the rightful king, but he had no army backing him up. I knew if push came to shove Lord Stark would ally himself with Jon, but that was about it. I need to thread my web very carefully, otherwise I will lose everything, I sighed. Caw, you already did! You already did, caw! Chapter 119. I woke up the next morning with excitement. Today was the day that I was going to attack King's Landing. The Tyrells had found the majority of the wildfire, meaning I was clear to attack the Lannisters. I was going to lead the attack, charging with my dragon in the front lines. My dragon's son and I would be more than enough to take care of all the enemy traps ahead, including the ones that Tywin Lannister. Today is the day, I shouted for everyone to hear. Today we take down those fake lions. And everything they love. Needless to say, my men started to shout a chant in agreement. They had been ready to fight for me long before, and now it was their time to shine and prove how loyal they were. A suicidal thought, but one that helped me. Not to be a party pooper, but Oberyn approached me. Can we trust those flowers? They have jumped sides like a game of hot potato. Lovely reference, and no, we can't trust, but for now, I know they are playing on my side. I chuckled. After all, it was very hard to lie to me when I had ravens spying their every move. We should be ready to march in a few hours, Ned Stark stated, mounting his horse. Are you going to ride your dragon ahead? Or wait for us? I will wait for everyone to be ready. Once the men start marching, I will fly to the city with Neltharion, taking out their defenses, I answered. Very well, Ned nodded. Leave some Tywin for me if you happen to burn him, Oberyn added with a smirk. I chuckled. I will try. It took my entire army roughly 2 hours to get ready to march, but once they were done, I mounted Neltharion and left them. As I charged with my dragon's son and some of my ravens into battle. My goals with this attack were simple. I wanted to destroy all long-range fighters and, of course, create some chaos on Tywin's formation, shaking his strategy. Are you guys ready? I asked my dragon son. I will not let you down. I will burn every enemy that stands in our way, Neltharion stated with absolute confidence. We are ready, caw. My ravens cawed in one voice. I smiled at their answers. As I laid my eyes on King's Landing, I could already see the castle from afar, and it had been only an hour since I left my men behind. Air travel does make a difference. Let's show them what we got. I shouted. Caw! The city kept getting closer and closer. Second by second the distance between us and the city was slowly disappearing, and just when we were in range I shouted, Fire! At my command torrent of fire shot from Neltharion's mouth, burning every poor soul on its unforgiving path, setting a lot of unaware soldiers to blazes, melting eyes and burning their skin away, killing them a few seconds after the fire had taken them. Locate all the long-range defense posts. I ordered a few of my ravens, and in response they immediately flew to fulfill their mission. Fire! One man shouted from the ground, ordering the archers to shot, but little did they know, normal arrows can't hope to pierce the scales of a dragon, and if by some weird case I happened to be their target, with my skills and current mobility, well, let's say they had a better chance of getting an erection from Varys. Archers their Neltharion, I pointed, and immediately after they found themselves experiencing what did hell felt like. We located all the posts. Caw! One raven said flying beside me in Neltharion. Where? Neltharion inquired. Follow me, caw! The raven said flying off, with Neltharion and I following him close behind. Taking my bow, from my back I smiled. How about we make this a friendly competition, hen? I'm in! Neltharion hissed happily. I chuckled. I haven't even told you what it is. I don't care, I will win either way. Neltharion stated. Very well then, I chuckled, let's see who kills more. Awesome! Don't be mad when I crush you. Neltharion was very competitive. We'll see, I smirked. Here we are, caw. The raven we had been following guided us to the wall defenses. Without even waiting for my command, Neltharion started to burn every person in the wall. Their screams of pain and agony were at this point surely filling the city with the catastrophic melody of despair, and I was the grand maestro of this orchestra, and like so, I would give them the best concert of their lives. Let's give them a show! I shouted, shooting arrows left and right, killing enemies with ease, as my dragon son burned his way, and my ravens pushed the archers down the wall. The slaughter had begun. Tywin Lannister point of view. The city was under attack, but instead the army I was expecting, it was only Ronard and his beast, and yet they were crushing my archers like they were nothing, but things were not so much out track. I still could defeat Ronard if I made him believe he won, then it would only be a matter of blowing him off with the wildfire. We are under attack, Cersei muttered, entering my office. I'm aware. I'm old, not blind, or deaf, I sighed. We will win, Cersei stated, the mountain standing by her side. The walls of King's Landing have never fallen down, no man has managed to do so. The key word being man, I interrupted her, for she was once again being an idiot. The sole reason the walls had been intact were because the idiots that had tried were idiots without big armies, and of course, they didn't have dragon. What use does a wall has if you can fly over it? Don't forget he rides a creature thought to be a fairy tale till now. He will die either way. By our sword or by our fire, Cersei stated. Your blind confidence in victory is almost adorable, but you are not a kid anymore. I sighed. Anyways, father. I have to go and see my son. Cersei commented, it was maybe the last time she got to see him, if things end up being bad, that is. Please tell him to put on his armor, I ordered. He will not fight. Cersei growled. He is the king, he needs to fight, and beside I don't need your opinion nor your approval, I stated with cold eyes looking at her. I won't let you. A single hand sign was more than enough to shut my daughter down. If she gets in your way to get the prince, don't hesitate to use force. Am I clear, Ser Gregor Clegane? I looked at my mad dog, who simply nodded in reposon, leaving with my daughter to retrieve my grandson. This was everyone's last stance. This battle would either destroy 2 houses or set in stone the Lannisters on the throne. Chapter 120. The slaughter continued, with Neltharion burning every in our path. Soon the city would be ours. My ravens had informed me that my army was going to arrive any minute now, meaning this battle would be over soon. Now, the rest was up to the Tyrells. They had to stop Cersei's backup plan. Now that was a bit complicated. One segment of wildfire was more than enough to set a big part of the city on fire, so if they missed even one, the consequences would be catastrophic. Let's focus now on the troops outside the walls. By this point we had already burned all the archers and anyone close to the wall, so as to not waste any time, it was time to focus on the others. Got it, Neltharion said, turning to the other troops. As we continued burning the enemy's army, from afar I could already see my men approaching the battlefield fast. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say they were a few minutes away at much, which meant it was time to open a path for them. Burn the gates to King's Landing, I ordered my son. His fire was strong enough to break through wood, and even shattered stone. In short, the wooden gates of King's Landing were barely an inconvenience for us, but the main reason I had avoided to attack them until now was because I didn't want to push Cersei to her limits, at least not until my army was close, which it was the case now. I also wanted to give the Tyrells more than enough time to plan their approach at stopping Cersei and her suicidal plan, and by the information my ravens had been giving me, they had set a big part of their army to defend those delicate spots. Of the Tyrells depended if I gave my men the signal to enter the city or not. Tywin Lannister point of view. Chaos. Pure and absolute chaos. The walls of King's Landing were in flames, the citizens were running and crying in fear, and my army was broken, fire and agony breaking their formations. Was our defeat always this, unavoidable? One man, one simple man, was leveling my army like they were nothing, and all he had right now with him was a dragon, one dragon by his side, and everything I planned was burn into nothingness. In the end it was me, who was blind. I didn't have to see more to know that the moment Ronard's army breached within the wall, everything would be lost. I underestimated the power that a dragon had. By a long margin. I thought a good formation and weapons would stop the beast, but they didn't. Arrows bounced off its skin, swords couldn't reach it, and catapults were too slow to aim at the beast, and were subsequently burned like the rest of my plans. The gates are gone, the dragon blew them open, one of my soldiers said with fear, shaking. Where is the king? I shouted, turning to one of my men. He is with the queen, my lord, the soldier answered. Even in the end, the idiot of a daughter I had was destroying our name. Even in defeat, a Lannister must be an example. Bring the king to me, or die trying. I commanded. This was the last time I allowed my daughter to shame the family name, or what was left of it. If we were going to die, we would die being the lions we were. No grandson of mine was going to hide under a skirt. He was the damn king, and like a good captain he had to sink with his boat. Besides, his mother's plan was to blow up King's Landing if we failed to win, and we were doing just that, failing awfully to win this fight. Cersei Lannister point of view. Father had failed once again to stop Ronard. He had failed me for the last time, and he would burn with the city for it. He thought I wanted to take King's Landing with everyone in the city included, but the reality of my plan was a bit different, something I had kept secret to everyone. The city would indeed burn, but without Joffrey, the mountain and me, I had other plans for us, for we would escape through one of the many city tunnels, leaving Ronard and my father burning. With the mountain on my side, I would be able to survive, long enough to take what it was mine. Why do we have to escape, Mother? I'm a king. The enemies will kneel when they see my radiance, Joffrey complained. They will, but for now, we need to play our cards to the best of our possibilities, I sighed. Well, if we don't have any other choice, Joffrey sighed. Behind me, the mountain commanded, and a second later I noticed why he was giving us orders. Soldiers of Highgarden were in the tunnels, guarding the first explosive of the chain that would set the city on fire. How dare you to touch a king? You are not worthy of it. Joffrey hissed with anger at the mountain, failing to notice the soldiers ahead. We have orders to not let you pass, one of the soldiers said, unsheathing their blade. I am your queen, so who ordered you such a thing? I inquired. We have orders, and that's all you need to know, the soldier replied. Stay back. I'll handle this, the mountain said, slowly walking towards the dozen soldiers with a smile plastered on his face. He wanted to break them, to make them suffer. Make every single one of them suffer, but be quick, we have at much an hour before the bear takes the city, I ordered. That's more than enough time, the mountain laughed, dashing towards the soldiers with a wicked smirk of pleasure. Ned Stark point of view. The damage one dragon alone was able to deliver was truly terrifying. No wonder my ancestors kneeled to the first Targaryen. This was unbelievable. Just Ronard and his dragon were more than enough to level a big part of the defenses King's Landing had in place, and all it took him was about an hour and a half, burning everyone and everything on his way. And he did all this with online 1 out of 3 dragons. I can only imagine what he would be capable of doing with his 3 dragons. Most likely he would have no need for us. Let's keep the fight outside. We need to wait for the king's signal to enter the city, I shouted, remembering the men we had to wait until Ronard safe enough to enter. In that Ronard had been very clear that if he didn't give the ghost signal to enter we were forbidden to do so, as to avoid everyone getting caught in the explosion. This marks the end of part 24 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.